African Echo podcast, where we are echoing and we are just listening to the community voices and making them into national voices. My name is Portia Mbambo, and today we are still talking about in the series in the national dialogue on the CRL and the Section 22 regulation that have started and caused a lot of havoc within the religious sector. And by now, I am kindly joined by Professor Mangaliso Kumalo. I'm just going to read to you his big accolades that are so muchly respected. He's a former dean of the School of Religion, Philosophy and Classics, and is currently director of Center for Constructive Theology at UKZN. He's specializing at the public theology history. So he's currently stationed at PMB, it's the Pietermaritzburg campus. Prof, thank you so much and welcome to African Echo Podcast.
Thank you very much, Portia. Thank you for having me. It's a privilege.
Oh, it's my honor to actually speak to you. My mind is blown all sides. Prof, we are meeting at a very, very significant time in the history of religion in our country. I just finished last week an episode with Bishop who outlined on how the boards and associations of Christians, especially, and to say the whole religious spectrum in a country, especially in the province. Now, we are today looking into this proposal by the CRL that they want to regulate churches. And this comes under the Section 22 that is currently in consultations around the country. Now, why has this particular conversation? It looks like a very easy conversation, but it has generated a very strong reaction within the entire religious spectrum.
Yes. Well, the issue itself of church-state relations, Portia, is as old. It's about 2,000 years old.
Right.
They've been grappling with this all the time. How does the church relate to the state, and how does the state relate to the religious community, including churches? And for time immemorial, the different models have been tried by different leaders in different countries, which have been there for centuries. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work.
Right.
So there is no fixed model. It's forever work in business, in progress, to come up with an appropriate model of how religious communities relate to the state. For instance, one can remind you that there are a few models. One model is what we call a theocratic model, where the church dominates the political space.
All right.
And actually influences policy. When people say, for instance, you find that very much even in Muslim countries, and at some stage you find that at some stage even in England, the Anglican Church once dominated the monarchy, and in that's why even today, and the Lutheran Church is a state church in other countries. In this, people are forever trying to say, how do they relate to the politics, to political leadership, and which models do they use? And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Others would say you need to have a clear difference between the church and the state, no interference.
Yes.
We call that a secular society.
Okay.
Others would say, well, we want to be seen as a Christian country. Zambia at some stage declared themselves by constitution that they are a Christian state. Others would say, well, there must be areas where we collaborate. There must be areas where we don't collaborate. And so we adopt a model of, we call it a relative autonomy, where either the state and the church is autonomous on its own in some areas of its life, but
Right.
they converge in others. So generally, it shouldn't be surprising us, Portia, that there is this conversation.
Right.
What surprises us is the way in which it has generated responses and anger and the kind of feelings that are everywhere, as if this is an issue that has just come out of space to
Right.
invade us,
Yes.
whereas it's an issue that we are needing to talk about anyway.
It's muchly needed. As I said, it's a national dialogue because from
Yes,
what we
exactly,
gathered, 86% of South Africans are religious, either
exactly,
Christian or any other.
exactly,
Therefore, this means the entire population is religious now. It's a very good
exactly.
conversation. My pastor guest
Yes, it
said
is.
that they feel that the person who's leading the charge is the one that they have a challenge with rather than the actual
Exactly,
regulation
exactly,
itself. Maybe can you give us
exactly.
a perspective? Why is this? Because I mean, there's been commissioners. Chapter nines always have leadership that
Yes,
comes and goes, but
yes,
why is there a
yeah,
difference now?
yeah. It's a well, but they cannot entirely blame the chairperson of the CRL. She's not alone
Yeah,
in the blame side of things. I also think even the religious community themselves have also tended to think that some, not everybody, to think that they shouldn't be touched. They are
mm,
sacrosanct. Religion should not be challenged and all that, which is problematic on its own.
yeah,
On the side of the CRL leadership, I think it's an issue of approach. They could have done better in approaching it rather than, in some instances, sort of castigating the religious community, saying things that are actually maybe offensive. When you are going to say things like, anyone who claims that God has spoken to them, they must go and have their head checked by psychiatrists and all that. That's that's
right.
that's not necessary.
Mm,
You are already creating animosity with
PR
a
nightmare.
constituency that
Mm,
you should be engaging on. And so people, instead of listening to you and engaging with you, they start having the attitude that no, she doesn't see us, and
mm,
they start resisting, which is not necessary. That's the one issue. Maybe that's just a personal level. The other issue would be the process. How has the process been implemented?
mm,
Has it been inclusive enough
right.
um, of the broader church community and leadership? And the people who form the Section 22 committee, how were they elected? How were they nominated? Who participated? Who was included and who was not included? And what capacity do they have? How much respect do they command from their constituencies? Um, those are the issues that have led to this. And in fact, these are issues that if people had worked on
Mm,
properly, they would have allayed some of the unnecessary fears
yes.
and attitudes that we have seen.
Mm,
So it's not necessary. Of course, the churches themselves have got their own issues.
mm,
There are people who genuinely don't want to be regulated
mm,
uh, for their own personal reasons.
right.
Um, yeah, but that's problematic also. You can't operate in a society without any rules and just do what you want to do. That's the second part.
Yeah.
The third part that I want to put on the table is that we also need to define what do we mean by regulation.
Mm,
You know, uh, what does it include?
yeah.
And how far does it go to
Exactly.
exerting control
Mm,
to the other? And people are always conscious of not being controlled,
yeah.
especially in a country that claims to respect religious freedom.
Absolutely.
And it's in the constitution that you have that. South Africa, Portia, actually, it's not secular in the manner that you think of the US. France, and other countries,
Mm.
which are just they propose total separation of religion and state. There
Okay.
is no relationship in there. South Africa, by constitution, is what we call the neutral religious state.
Okay.
What does that mean? That means that you recognize that you are a religious community, with the majority of your country being religious people. It's just that you do not allow any particular religion to dictate the politics of the country.
Okay.
You guard against that.
Mm.
But you do recognize and honor and respect the right of people to be religious,
Yeah.
and their religion and an exercise and practice of religion is protected by the Constitution.
Mm.
So when you are going to be regulating that, you need to nuance and move carefully, because it's not a clear black and white and either or kind of thing that you can then just come, wake up in the morning as government and say, we're going to have this set of rules. You do this, you don't do this, you do this, you don't. No, 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 you're creating problems.
You're raising some very, very important conversation, Prof. I don't think this episode is going to be enough to unpack all this. But the main one that the churches are for is the self-regulating method,
Yeah,
where they say we
yeah.
have been sustainable for 100 years or more
Mm,
so, we
mm,
are able to do
mm,
this. Now, I
mm,
asked my past guests to say, uh, but what about the guys that don't have such structures? What then happens to them?
mm,
That I think
mm,
that's where
mm,
the challenge might be. Now, here we are, and you're
mm.
saying to us, South Africa is more of a non-partisan kind of a method
Yes,
that it uses,
yes,
which might be brilliant for us because we are highly democratic. And since our
yes,
democracy is so new, we want to have a
yes,
feel of it, and everyone wants to use
yes.
it to empower
Yeah,
themselves.
yeah,
But here we are.
yeah.
How other churches are going to be able to self-regulate? We understand the bigger and the well-known ones, but then we have thousands and thousands of ministries out there
Mm,
that are
mm,
not accountable
mm,
for anything.
mm, mm. Well, Portia, the first thing that we need to do is to be clear with the framework that we are going to use and the tools, the resources that you need to actually embark on a regulation process. And this is going to take a long time. It cannot be done overnight. And even the churches themselves, they will need to first agree that on their own, they do not have the capacity to
Mm,
self regulate because they are too fragmented.
mm,
They don't agree on the most basic things, that they should be agreeing on in society. So they will need some external assistance,
mm,
from a body that has got the capacity and the resources
mm.
to help them navigate the difficulties of regulating one another.
Right,
That's where the government comes in.
right.
And so the government, and the churches are actually partners in crime on this one. They are bedfellows. They must not refuse to get together to bed and discuss this and work
Mm,
on it together. You can't refuse the other the
mm.
right to come on board,
Yes.
because government has got the national mandate of protecting people's rights
Mm,
within the South Africa and making sure that everybody respects and operates within the confines of the Constitution.
mm.
You can't take that away from government, no matter who you are, whatever body you come from. You need to be adhering to government and respecting, otherwise, we will not be operating as a democracy, a
Mm,
constitutional democracy. You'll be a delinquent if you do that.
mm,
And the churches need to understand that they don't want to see or to be seen and behave like delinquents. They want to behave within the confines of a responsible institution within an operating democracy.
mm,
Now, what the government needs to then do is to say we'll offer you expertise, on how we've regulated the health sector before. We've regulated other sectors, the music sector, the arts and culture, all other sectors. We have done that before. So we have the institutional knowledge, the skills and the resources that are needed to regulate and help fragmented institutions and organizations to regulate themselves.
Okay.
And we are there as the support base for that. We are not going to regulate for you or you. We will enable you in the process. We can advise, we can give wisdom and share best practice from other parts of the world
Mm,
where the regulation has taken place.
mm. Wow, that is very uh,
And in the process.
That is very, very important, Prof. And yeah, safe recordation has been a conversation that has been passed around. But Prof, I would like us to look because your specialty is also in history, which is so brilliant for me.
Yes.
Now, in history and around, especially, I'm not going to open this to other overseas. I'm just going to stay within Africa now.
Yes.
Have we had what practices or what have we learned from the places or the areas and the countries that have had this kind of regulations? Maybe they might not be because it's Africa, they might not be
Mm,
truly fully
mm,
legally so, but they're out there
mm,
practiced.
mm, mm,
I've had examples about Rwanda and so forth. But what can
mm,
you give us as something where people can sleep at night and look into it and say, maybe this can work for us, or maybe not, because
mm,
people have
mm,
choices.
mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we in other countries, you'd also look in countries like Botswana.
Mm,
You'd look like countries in Eswatini that have also gone through this process,
okay.
where most of these countries before they became democratic and independent. And most of these countries, African countries, were actually Christian countries.
Mm,
South Africa is a good example. You know that during apartheid, we're actually a Christian country.
yeah.
Um, and even the education that we had was known as the Christian National Education System and all that. And we needed to move out of that in order to be in a system that is much more free and then does away with apartheid and all that. So it doesn't mean that when people want to be regulated and have the church dominating, then they will have the best system and the best life that they may have. The colonial era, all these countries that I've just mentioned, were all under Christian governments that were actually colonizing African countries and all that. They had, through independence, they needed to come up with new constitutions.
Mm,
And most of them, some started with the very same idea of saying, okay, we are going to still remain Christian
mhm,
country and all that. But they realized that the other denominations are also growing, the
mm,
other traditions. You've got your Muslims, African traditional religions, and all that. And it becomes unfair to claim to be a Christian country that is run by a church, because a church, even in this country, may have 80% of people being Christian, but actually the other 20% consists of African traditional religions, of Muslims and Hindus and everybody who are also South Africans, and they need to have the same right themselves in this country of belonging and practicing their religion.
mm.
Therefore, that's where the secular model comes in, where
Wow.
you then say, okay, we are going to respect all the other religions and don't allow one to be dominant simply because it's got a majority.
Mm,
The Rwandan experience is a bad one for anyone to try and learn from
mm,
because you are actually just hearing almost a voice of a leader there, saying, "I've wake up in the morning and decide to cancel this, to cancel this, to close that, to close that." That's undemocratic itself. That's why you need a long process that takes into account the nation, the citizens, the groups themselves that are being regulated, and the state itself. And so we do need this regulation, but not without the church. The
Mm.
church must be fully represented to a point of leading the process with government, working alongside them, giving support, giving insights, giving direction until it is concluded.
So currently, this seems like that process is just mentioned is the one that is impartial in our country.
Yes, yes. At the moment, in fact, it has become, they've actually messed up the process
Mm.
because everybody now is set to either resist or to impose.
Mm.
It has now gone to parliament. We've seen the portfolio chairperson there, Dr. Zwelim Kize, are coming forward also, trying to hold these things together and to say, well, it's important for the churches also to be listened and be part of this process, and this must not be imposed. At the same time, we must also hear the concerns that are there. And what are the concerns, Portia? The concerns are actually, whilst they've got serious elements of truth, but very marginal. How do you judge an institution by just one or two renegades
Mm.
who go out of the way to do something bizarre? That's crazy. And then you say, because they are from that institution, we need to regulate the whole institution and all that. The people that they caught, the one who made people to drink petrol, the other one who spread doom on other people, and Omotoso, those three people, they don't represent the 80% of Christians in this country.
Mm.
The 80% of people in this country are good Christians. They
Mm.
are committed to the church. And they are the people who are sponsoring. The church employs in this country alone close to 1 million people who work as pastors, clerks, gardeners, whatever you can think of, are
Right.
being employed by churches.
Mm.
How many children, both in schools and universities, are receiving bursaries
Mm.
from the church and all that? The list goes on and on of the good that the church is doing. And
Wow.
then you wake up and say, these churches are bad. These churches are crazy. They need to be checked by psychiatrists if they are all in place. We need to regulate them and all that. What are you talking about? What type of church are you talking about? You know, I don't understand that. It was Mahatma Gandhi who said that if you want to judge
Mm.
any religious institution, you go to the best of their people that they have and use those to then say, is this a good or a bad religion? You don't go to the delinquents, you don't go to the outliers and then use them to punish everybody else who is there. That's not how it works.
Yeah, Prof, you're just making it simple for everyone to understand that it's not a national crisis, it's an isolated
Yes,
cases here and there. But
exactly.
as we are just about to conclude the Prof, you are reminding me of something very important that now we are here and it feels like as a country, as a nation, as people within the sector of religious
Mm, mm,
there's a role and there's much more that needs to be unpacked. Now, what advice can you give to the policymakers, to the
mm,
church,
mm,
and importantly
mm,
to the community at large, which are the congregants,
mm,
to advise them,
mm.
especially on this important principle that they should uphold in dealing with the matters like this, because it's not a bad proposal, but it's also feels
Mm-mm.
like it's just didn't, and also because Prof, we are South Africans, we are Africans. There's a way how you deliver things. You don't just come like
Yes,
you drop them.
yes,
There's a
no,
way of
no,
giving it to the
no,
public, and we
no,
know each other. We know each other,
yeah,
12 languages, and how each and every
mm,
one of us needs to be
mm,
respected and so forth. So
mm,
something around those lines.
mm,
How can you
mm.
advise? us in the sector itself, policymakers, everybody, to deal with this matter? Hi, Prof.
It's three words. It's dialogue,
Mm.
dialogue, and dialogue. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, I get you now. I get you now.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm saying it's just simple.
Mm,
It's just three words. It's dialogue, dialogue, and dialogue.
mm,
People have to learn to get into the room and listen to one another
right.
and know that this matter has got nothing to do with the individuals and people. It's an if we do it well, the nation will benefit.
Mm,
If we don't do it well, we are letting down the nation because the nation is religious and all that. So, yes, CRL, one would want to say to them, maybe they need to pause and listen
mm,
a bit more than talk and judge. The religious community, one might want to say, maybe you need to lower the temperature. You know, you've become too angry. Just lower the temperature and begin to find, look at a possible way of participating and
mm,
guiding the process.
mm,
The people in parliament who make policy, you also need to say to them, you've got two people who are at each other's throats. You've got the responsibility to
mm,
hold this together, to protect the people and religion and hold the constitution in its place in the country so that people don't abuse it. But
mm,
at the same time, as you do that, you also protect people's rights
mm.
to the freedom of religion. And
Right.
your institutions that you like the chapter nines and all that, maybe there's a need for you to engage them on how to engage society and societal groups
Mm,
on issues that are a bit contentious.
mm,
Because if they don't do it well, they are actually embarrassing the
mm,
state itself. That it's a state that talks democracy and listening to people, whilst at the same time seems not to be listening and
yeah.
bulldozing its way to the lives of people. I
Mm.
think everybody has to come in into a process of listening to one another as we engage as a nation.
Last one is for today, Prof. Um, is there a possibility? I mean, this is your thing, the research and analysis, Prof. Assist my mind because it seems like today I'm asking this a lot. And is there a possibility of seeing a vibrant religious political party coming out of this?
Well, it's not a possibility, Portia. It has to happen. You know, we need
Right,
to have it.
right,
We need to have it because we are a vibrant religious community, a
mm,
nation
right,
in South Africa. When people become religious, they leave everything else. They go
right.
all the way
Mm,
to be religious. It's in them. One of the that was John Beatty. He said that Christians are incurably religious, or he said Africans are
mm,
notoriously or incurably religious. You
right.
know, it's in the African people. They are not going to wake up one day and then start hating churches and any other religious group. No, no, no,
Right.
no, no, no. They will always. How do you harness the potential, the excitement that is there, the resources, the assets
Mm,
that religions brings to
right.
people, the empowerment, the possibilities that come with religion to people's lives. And instead of stifling that,
Mm,
how do you liberate it, open it up, without harming any other person in the process, and
right.
also making sure that, because even those crazy people who make people drink petrol and all that, it's just some excitement, and potential that they have to do the craziest things. How do you redirect that craziness, that potential, that energy, and the ability to convince people to go to hell walking and burn themselves. If you can change that around, they can actually take the country out of poverty and all the difficulties that it has. It
Mm.
shows a potential that is misdirected, that is in religion. How do we then enable the framework
Mm.
to work for the country, to work for the people, to empower everyone, so that being religious becomes an excitement and an asset for
Mm.
the African people rather than a liability, as it is at times?
Right. No, I get you. Ngiyakuza, Prof. Because so fast in this so pack, and I mean, having a lot of fun learning and also understanding some of the fundamentals. I'm sure that our audience is also going to learn a lot out of it. But thank you so much, Prof, for just taking your time in your busy schedule and talking to us. But I also want to request you that please be our guest now and then.
Yes.
We like having you, especially perspective, the history. Ah, my goodness, so much of it, so we can just unpack and learn and educate each other on it.
Thank you very much. No, I'll be your guest, and next time I will not make the mistake of mixing up the times. So I'll be here.
Ngiyabonga kakhulu. Thank you so much, Mdungo, for your time. Blessings.
Bonga mina. Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you so much to you, Professor, for that insightful and very impactful conversation. Well, this is what we are learning about, and this is what African Echo is about. Well, if you like this conversation, subscribe, share, and comment. We are all over on our socials. Thank you so much for taking your time. Do God bless you. Until next time on the next episode. Bye.